For many, the dream of living an outdoor life takes shape through the work in wildlife management, forestry, maybe becoming an adventurer or some other occupation where your office is the wilderness and the beginning and ending of your workday is the rising and setting of the sun. But for a simple young man born in Denmark, scouting was going to be his ticket to living an outdoor life. And little did he know how influential he would become to millions of scouts and scouters in the Boy Scouts of America. Today, we're going to learn more about the Scoutmaster of the world. Wilhelm Bjerregaard Jensen was born in Aarhus, Denmark in August 1900. He was the youngest of 3 boys, was well educated, and enjoyed a busy and happy childhood. So who is Wilhelm Bjerregaard Jensen? Well, it's likely that you know him as William Hillcourt, or simply Green Bar Bill. Now, Bill had many friends at school, but none of them really enjoyed his love of the outdoors as much as he did. As a result, he spent much of his time alone, roaming in the woods around our house. Well, this bothered his mother to some degree. Nelson Block, chairman of the Green Bar Bill Hillcourt Foundation, tells us about the beginning of Bill's scouting adventures.
In 1910, one of his older brothers gave him a book that changed his life. It was the first Danish translation of Baden-Powell's Scouting for Boys. He read the book, he loved what was in it, and he got some of his friends from school together and formed a patrol. They began scouting and camping and had a great time.
A couple of years later, Bill's family began moving frequently due to his father's work. Bill continued his scouting adventures as best he could until his family returned to our house in 1916. Upon his return, Bill reformed his old patrol, and with Bill as their patrol leader, they resumed their scouting activities in earnest. They camped on an island in a local lake. They raised money for their adventures, and one summer they hiked and camped along the western coast of Denmark. Now, Bill was in his element, and he flourished as a patrol leader. In 1917, Bill earned the highest rank in Danish scouting, Knight Scout. Over the years, Bill's scouting influence grew, and now his patrol was part of a troop, and as the most senior patrol leader, he often led the entire troop. By 1920, Bill had been leading his troop for some time, and now he was in college studying to become a pharmacist. That was the year he was also selected by his troop to be a part of the Danish contingent at the First World Jamboree, where he met Baden-Powell for the first time. Following his World Jamboree experience and armed with a college degree, Bill's scouting interest started to take off on a more serious adult focus. Bill became a scoutmaster of a troop and began to be a trainer for the national courses offered to Danish scouters. He also started his writing career, penning for the Danish Scouting Journal and then becoming its editor. He was also writing articles for newspapers and even authored his first book, The Island, which was based on his island adventures as with his old patrol. In 1925, Bill decided he wanted to see the world and study scouting in other countries with the idea of bringing the best practices he observed back to Danish scouting. His first stop was the United States, where he found a job working during the summer of 1926 at a BSA camp in New York. While waiting for an elevator in the building where the BSA national offices were located, Bill had a chance encounter with James E. West, the Chief Scout Executive. West knew of this Danish scout working in the office and asked Bill what he thought about the American scouting program he'd observed. The conversation lasted the length of their elevator ride, but Bill believed his thoughts deserved more than just this brief encounter. So he wrote a very detailed memo to West about both the good and the bad of what he observed in American scouting. West agreed with much of what Bill had said and offered him a permanent job working on BSA programs and editorial assignments. Bill was in his element. It was through this job at the national office that he met his future wife, a lovely, dark-haired, fun-loving young woman from Yonkers named Grace Brown. Now, Bill took a chance and he booked tickets for them on a steamship headed to Europe. Then he proposed, and they were married on the morning of the day their ship set sail. Their honeymoon lasted for 100 days, and much of it involved riding a bicycle through Western Europe, which sounds like a great time until you learn that Grace didn't know how to ride a bike. After their honeymoon, Bill began writing and editing for Scouting magazine. He also took on the project of writing the first edition of the Patrol Leader's Handbook, which was one of the items Bill mentioned in his memo to Mr. West that got him hired in the first place. Now, Bill believed that this book had to be written by someone that had been both a patrol leader and a scoutmaster. West agreed. The Handbook for Patrol Leaders was published in 1929 and led to West assigning Bill to the job of helping him save Boy's Life magazine. Now, the Great Depression took its toll on a number of youth magazines, and Boy's Life was only able to stay afloat due to the backing of the BSA and a loan from the Rockefeller Foundation. The Rockefeller Foundation loan had two conditions. First, West would be the editor of Boy's Life, and second, the magazine would have more scouting-related stories within its pages. Bill was tasked to start writing a monthly column called Hiking with Greenbar Bill. The articles were written from the perspective of one patrol leader writing to another patrol leader about his patrol, advancement, and activities. Despite the fact that Bill was in his 30s, Bill transformed from the patrol leader of his friends in Denmark to the patrol leader to America. Bill's role in the BSA was expanding from writing on scoutcraft and troop leadership skills to being one of the primary program researchers and developers in the BSA. For Bill, program development was much more than just thinking up an idea and writing it down. He needed to take it for a test drive, try it out, make adjustments, and try it again before it was shared with the scouts to do on their own. And what better way to test all of his theories and ideas than to become the scoutmaster of a troop? So Bill founded a troop in Mendham, New Jersey, right next to the newly donated Schiff Scout Reservation, which would also serve as the BSA's National Training Center. Bill and Grace moved into a converted sheep barn at Schiff so they would be closer to the troop and to his work. In 1935, Lord and Lady Baden-Powell visited the United States and were taken to Schiff for a reception. It was the second time Bill had met BP, and the first, of course, being back at the First World Jamboree when he was representing his troop as part of the Danish contingent. But it was Grace who stole the show. When she met Baden-Powell's wife, she told her about all the things her and Bill were doing together to meet the needs of the BSA. Lady Powell was impressed and told her husband, "These are the kind of people we've been hoping to meet." BP was also impressed by Bill and Grace's efforts on behalf of scouting, and a friendship was born that would last as long as the BPs were alive and continued with their children and grandchildren. In 1936, Bill took an experimental wood badge training under John Skinner Wilson, camp chief of Gilwell Park. At the time, wood badge had not come to the United States yet and was modeled more around the scouting program of England. Bill completed the training and in 1948 served as the first scoutmaster or course director for the first wood badge course held here at Philmont Scout Ranch as well as in the United States. These beads are Bill's personal 5-bead set. The first 2 beads are for completing the training. The 3rd bead is for serving on staff, and the 4th bead is for serving as a course director. The 5th bead is awarded to a person who brings wood badge to their country. In Bill's case, the 5th bead wasn't presented to him until the 1960s when John Wilson Skinner gave Bill one of the beads to signify his role in bringing wood badge to the BSA. The bead Wilson presented to Bill was directly from the original Denny Zulu necklace BP began the wood badge bead recognition program from. Now, for the next 30 years or so, Bill's mark on the BSA and the World Brotherhood of Scouting grew. For nearly 25 years, every piece of printed material read or training received by a scout or scouter was authored by Greenbar Bill. Short of BP himself, it's highly unlikely that anyone wrote more about scouting, leadership, and scoutcraft. Bill helped develop youth and adult leadership trainings, he had input on advancement requirements, and he met and corresponded with scouters around the world, advising them on training and leadership. Bill attended all but 2 of the World Jamborees that were held in his lifetime. The 2 he missed, well, that was because the BSA wouldn't give him time off to attend. Bill served the BSA until his retirement in 1965. During his tenure, he insisted that all written resources and training materials were thoroughly researched, well organized, and invitingly presented. Boys and leaders must be taught in a manner that was effective. In fact, you can thank Greenbar Bill for the requirement that training be delivered in full uniform. The story goes that one day James E. West was addressing a group of new scout executives during their training wearing a business suit. He invited Bill to offer some words of wisdom to the new scout executives, and Bill provided them a few tidbits from his knowledge and closed by telling the executives that they should set the example and appear at all training events in full scout uniform. The next day, a memo went out from the Chief Scout Executive's office mandating that all national office representatives would wear the complete uniform at all training events. From 1961 to 1965, Bill worked with Lady Baden-Powell to research and write the first authoritative biography of BP, published under the title Baden-Powell, The Two Lives of a Hero. It was translated into 7 foreign languages and became the standard reference work on this world figure. Following his retirement, Bill and Grace traveled extensively, visiting Scout friends and helping to develop and implement training programs for Scouting associations all over the world. Now, Grace died in 1973, and despite the loss of his love, great friend, companion, and helpmate, Bill continued his volunteer Scouting work. In 1978, Bill convinced Chief Scout Executive Harvey L. Price to allow him to rewrite the Boy Scout Handbook. In the 1970s, the Boy Scout program underwent a major overhaul and left many with very little excitement over the improved program. In an effort to appeal to more urban youth, the outdoor program was de-emphasized, and Scoutmasters went from outdoor heroes to their Scouts to becoming training managers for the boys. In fact, the Scout Handbook didn't even have the term campfire in the index. Now, Scouters were frustrated and membership numbers dropped. By 1979, the Boy Scout Handbook was rewritten by Bill, and the 9th edition was sold as the official Boy Scout Handbook. The new handbook was an instant success with over 4.4 million copies sold. Altogether, Bill's handbooks on Boy Scouting have sold 17.3 million copies. Bill's contributions to the BSA were recognized with the award of the Silver Buffalo for distinguished service to the youth of America. His citation called him the voice of Scouting. Now, even though his Green Bar Bill column had long since disappeared from Boy's life, Scouts who had never seen in print his famous Bill signature superimposed on 2 green bars lined up for hours at a time to get the genuine article handwritten on their handbook or Order of the Arrow sash. Bill signed 7,423 autographs at the 1989 National Scout Jamboree. Bill received the highest scouting recognition of a dozen countries, including this Silver Wolf from the United Kingdom and this Bronze Wolf, the highest award of the World Organization of Scouting Movement. Now, Bill also earned his Eagle Scout Award as an adult, and the date that he actually earned it is not properly recorded, as the National Eagle Scout Association shows it as being in 1917 when he was awarded the equivalent of the Danish ranks. But we know that wasn't possible because he wasn't in the United States and he was still a young man, a youth at the time. So the date is sort of in question, but we do know that as adults they could earn the Eagle rank up until about the 1950s. So he also has that, and we have that here at the museum as well. On November 9th, 1992, while on the last leg of a World Scouting tour, Bill passed away in Sweden. The next day, he was scheduled to visit his native Denmark. The world tour that he began in 1926 lasted a lifetime.
Bill married Grace Brown, who was one of the secretaries for Dr. James E. West, in 1933. They had more than 40 years together. They never had any children, and when Bill passed away, he left all of his savings to a trust, which has now become the Green Bar Bill Hillcourt Foundation. The foundation supports training for youth and adults in scouting in the United States and around the world, and also supports the study of scouting history around the world.
A master of scouting skills from his youth, Bill spent a lifetime teaching them to others around the globe, earning him the title Scoutmaster to the world. Best known as Green Bar Bill, he made it his life mission to help Scouts and Scouters make their patrols and troops fun and active Scout groups.